What a breath of fresh air the Bad Batch has been. I couldn't have been more pleased while watching this show from season 1 all the way through season 3. But in the back of my mind, I always wondered if there was a greater purpose for this show. Season 1 is the adventure of our 5 misfits who find themselves immune from Order 66, or at least mostly. To add some tension amongst the ranks, Crosshair, their sharpshooter, turns to the Empire, after which Hunter, Wrecker, Echo, and Tech meet Omega. The 5 maneuver through the galaxy mainly as mercenaries. Aside of the clones we never really got to see in the Clone Wars was if they were materialistic or capitalistic in a war-torn galaxy. Whether they would become greedy or too self-absorbed would be quickly washed away as they spend most of their earnings to take care of their ship as well as Omega. Omega flatly got the Ahsoka treatment where she was borderline insufferable and mostly obsolete in the first season. She goes along for the ride with most of the Bad Batch's missions, but she's constantly getting in the. She often makes the missions harder, but throughout it the Batch learns to take care of her and train her in some ways of their own. Omega is a clone, but it's not really explained why she's created or why she's a girl, but she's supposed to be a pure replica of Jango Fett. She spends the first 12 years of her life contained on Kamino until she escapes with the Batch. However, shortly thereafter, Kamino is destroyed by the command of Admiral Rampart, who seized control of the cloning technology for the Empire. After that, we have some cameos from Rex and our old friend Cutler Quaid, who met the Batch on their travels in season 1, as well as some old senators like Senator Chuchi and Bail Organa. The first 2 seasons are full of submissions that last about an episode or 2 each and are mostly for character development purposes. Crosshair with the Empire shows how ruthless he is while serving them, until it is shown how the Empire treats clones. Cody's introduced into this show as he already has begun to see the flaws in the Empire. Crosshair doesn't see it fully until an Imperial captain lets a clone named Mayday die, who was someone that was telling Crosshair loyalty isn't everything, to not just blindly follow orders, but to be able to think for yourself. This leads Crosshair to kill the Imperial captain, which gets him locked away on Tantiss. All the while we follow the Batch's missions to fight against the Empire. But are our characters immortal? None of them are in any other expanded Star Wars content. Do they all die in this show, or they end up just out of the fight? How does this end is the question we are asking ourselves somewhere around season 2. And seemingly right on cue, the season 2 finale shows us that the Bad Batch are not immortal. A buildup of emotion with a tragic payoff really hit home for any real fan of this show. Possibly one of the most emotional moments in any Star Wars TV show was Tech's deaths. The teacher, the wise man, the knower of all things mechanical, selflessly sacrificed himself for his squad. Even though he didn't really have a choice, either he died or they all died, there was essentially no way he would make it out, but that's part of what makes it so memorable. Tech's final moments were caring solely about his brother is a core concept of the Clone Wars TV show as well. The moment never felt forced, but in fact felt very realistic given the circumstances. Shortly after Tech's death, that bitch Sid turned in Omega and the Batch to the Empire, setting up for the 3rd season. Season 3 was centered around saving Omega, until she saves herself with the help of Crosshair in the 3-episode season 3 premiere. After some scrambling, the two contact with Hunter and Wrecker to finally reunite. During this time, Rex and Echo are helping build this clone rebellion out of imprisoned clones who also don't agree with the Empire. This arc produces two really great episodes in which Wolf, alongside CX2, hunts down the remaining clones to squash the rebellions for good. This arc produces 2 really great episodes in which Wolf, along with CX2, hunt down the remaining clones to squash the rebellion for good. CX2 is one of Dr. Hemlock's super soldiers. It's never fully explained how the clones are chosen, but somehow, some way, they are brainwashed and becoming elite assassins for the Empire. During Omega's escape, Hemlock finds out that Omega's blood is the key to the cloning procedure they've been trying to unlock for Emperor Palpatine, a way to create Force-sensitive clones, I think. They're never really specific about it, but I'll come back to this. Rex tries to convince Wolf the Empire is evil and the clones escape after a large portion of them are killed off. The next few episodes are spent exploring the cloning facility on Tantiss, and we see Ventress come back as she vaguely tells us Omega may or may not be Force sensitive. But CX2 is eventually able to track down Omega and bring her back to Hemlock on Tantiss. For me, this is where the season took a bit of a turn, because this is the second time in one season where Omega is trapped on the same base and the Batch have to try to find her. It takes a while, a little too long. At this point, there are 6 episodes left and 5 of them are spent getting to Tantiss. Sure, we get some screen time on Tantiss while Omega finds out the Empire is holding some other kids, clones, and a Zillo Beast. I think that's the one they captured from season 2. It takes us all the way to the finale before the Batch finally arrive on Tantiss, and boy were the theories through the roof. Are the Batch going to die? Who is going to heroically give their life? Will we get Rex for reinforcements? Will they somehow tamper with the cloning technology? Will Vader show up? It turns out we got really none of that. The Batch ended up getting beaten down by the CX troopers, and Echo and Omega are able to release the Zillo Beast as a distraction and recruit some clone prisoners. Omega is able to free the Batch with the help of the clone prisoners right before Hemlock takes her and runs. Hunter and Crosshair track her down and are able to kill Scorch and Hemlock, thus saving the day. We also have the death of Rampart, who was helping the Batch, as well as Nala Se. It was all a little anticlimactic, if I might say so. The whole final episode constantly made me feel like one or all of the batch might die. Wrecker was hurting in the beginning, and Crosshair is still anxious and even almost volunteers himself to die so Hunter can go contact Rex. At the end of this season, more questions are left than answers. Project Necromancer, Hemlock's work, was shut down right after his death by Admiral Tarkin, and all of his work was destroyed. We know Necromancer comes back from The Mandalorian and then obviously in the sequel trilogy. So was this all for nothing? I was hoping we'd see the batch heroically give their life to destroy some of the Necromancer work, thus leaving it unfinished. So when Palpatine returns, he is deformed. Well, that would be because the batch destroyed half their work, so the Empire only had part of the cloning technology. Rex, Cody, and Wolf were nowhere to be found in the finale, along with the rest of the Clone Rebellion. Sure, this show is not called Rex's Adventures, but those arcs were introduced into the Bad Batch's story. It's very frustrating that those arcs were introduced, somewhat developed, and then just left a mystery. Does this mean we're getting a Clone Rebellion spinoff? And of course, all the batch survived. A very happy ending. I'm disappointed the show showed us the impact of losing one of the batch, but never fully committed to it. These characters don't serve a further purpose in this story. I figured Tech's death would be a pattern for how the batch would eventually fall. I would have preferred their story just ended in tragedy. It would have been more impactful and memorable. From Tech's death and the way the batch were worn down the final few episodes, I feel like it made more sense. I would have loved Omega to be the sole survivor and carry on all she has learned from her brothers. It's a beautiful moment at the end of the show when we are time skipped to her as an adult. It would have been even more beautiful if she had been all that remained, but carry on the legacy of the batch. It doesn't feel right that only one of them dies at the end of the second season, and then all the rest of them make it through the third. It almost feels like they all should have just lived if the plan was just to have them age on a rock island the rest of their lives. I loved nearly every moment of this show until the very end. I never saw episodes as filler because I saw them as ways for our characters to bond with one another and develop and learn from each other, all of which would have made a heroic, tragic sacrifice at the end so much more memorable and emotional. What do you think of the Bad Batch's story, and do you think we're getting a Clone Rebellion show? It seems like now that this series is over, we're left with more questions than answers. This felt more like the end of a season, not the end of a series. Maybe another show will follow Omega's adventures, and maybe we will learn more about how Project Necromancer comes back in the sequel era, as well as Mandalorian. Thanks, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.